Fãs de Nova Democracia, todos os nossos espectadores e espectadoras. Eu me chamo Ana Nascimento, sou jornalista aqui do AND, apresentadora dos programas A Propósito, Plantão Palestina e o AND Entrevista. E hoje nós temos a honra de poder entrevistar o professor Muslim Abuumar, que foi extraditado aqui do Brasil recentemente pela Polícia Federal, a mando do FBI e do Mossad. A Polícia Federal brasileira, a mando do FBI e do Mossad, prendeu o ativista palestino Muslim Abuumar no Aeroporto de Guarulhos na última sexta-feira, dia 21 de junho, sob suspeita de ser membro do Hamas, organização que compõe a Resistência Nacional Palestina. Abuumar foi preso junto com a sua esposa grávida, seu filho de 6 anos e a sua sogra, quando desembarcavam de um voo vindo da Malásia, onde moram. O professor Abuumar, ele foi acusado de integrar o Hamas, que é uma organização da Resistência Nacional Palestina que não é considerada terrorista pela legislação brasileira. No domingo, dia 23 de junho, a Justiça Federal de São Paulo autorizou a extradição do professor Muslim e a sua família, revogando uma decisão judicial anterior que havia barrado a operação até que a Polícia Federal explicasse a situação. O advogado do ativista, Bruno Henrique de Moura, negou qualquer ligação entre seu cliente e o Hamas, argumentando que não há provas ou acusações formais contra ele. Ele estava no Brasil para visitar um irmão em São Bernardo do Campo, lá em São Paulo. Ele é ativista de direitos humanos e analista geopolítico. É diretor fundador do Asia Middle East Center for Research and Dialogue. Ele é acadêmico sênior não residente do Centro de Estudos da Palestina na Universidade da Malásia e tem mestrado em Ciências Políticas e Relações Internacionais pela Universidade Islâmica Internacional da Malásia e, no momento, está fazendo seu doutorado em Política Externa da Malásia na Universidade da Malásia. Muslim, do you hear me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Greetings from New Democracy, and before we begin our interview, I would like to say on behalf of the New Democracy that we stand in solidarity with you, your family, and the entire cause of the Palestinian people and their brave national resistance. We are very sorry for the situation that you and your family have been forced to endure. I say this to let you know that you find in the Brazilian people a strong ally of your struggle and your cause, which teaches the world that the oppressed can overcome their oppressors and no injustice will go unnoticed. I would like to pass the word to you.
Obrigado. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm very glad to be with you, and I appreciate the kind words you just uttered, and I appreciate the solidarity I have seen over the last few days from the many Brazilian friends, many of whom I have not met before, but after the incident, they sent messages, commented on social media. Some expressed their solidarity publicly through articles, letters, and writings. I really appreciate everyone. And I feel that the solidarity of the Brazilian people with Palestine is one of the strongest, and 1 or 2 incidents here and there will not change the fact that the Brazilian people are wholeheartedly with Palestine. We really appreciate that in Palestine. So thank you for having me today on this conversation.
Thank you so much. We are very honored to interview you. So my first question to you, Professor Muslim, is about what happened when you arrived in Brazil. And I would like to know if you could explain to us in more detail how it all happened.
Okay, thank you very much. I am a Palestinian academic based in Kuala Lumpur. I have been living in Malaysia for more than 20 years, and I work in a think tank. I try to promote a better understanding of the Middle East, and of course, being a Palestinian, I always speak up on the Palestinian issue. I have participated in international conferences. I have written books and book chapters. I have published articles on Palestine in several languages. Now, coming to Brazil was merely a family visit. I have come to Brazil about a year and a half ago to visit my brother, who is a Brazilian citizen himself. And my mother joined us back then. And I thought that it is good if I visit my brother again after all these years. In Brazil, it was a very long journey. I brought my family along, and after almost 40 hours of travel, transit, and long trips, we arrived in Sao Paulo in Guarulhos Airport. Now, it was a very shocking reception. We went out of the plane. Once we stepped into the airport building, we were approached by federal police officers. I don't remember the number, 4 or 5 of them, all with badges and an order to arrest us or to stop us at the airport. They came to me straight away and called me by name. They said, "Mr. Muslim." I said, "Yes, Mr. Muslim." So they brought me to an interrogation room, and for probably 2 hours, I lost count of time actually, because it wasn't a very pleasant experience. For 1 or 2 or even 3 hours, we had a long, conversation or interrogation where they asked about my work, Palestine, what's going on in Palestine, some weird questions, including which mosque do I pray at. I mean, why does the police care about which mosque I pray at? The political views I have, what I think of the situation in Gaza, and so on. Of course, at first I was, although it was not a common thing to happen. I travel frequently, and this has never happened to me before. So I tried to, engage in a conversation with them to see where this is going. But when the questions started to become provocative, I started to feel very, very uncomfortable. Then later on, some American-speaking officer joined the conversation. She was very provocative. I don't know if she was Brazilian or American. This is I leave it to the lawyer and the court to go through this matter. She started asking very provocative questions about my views on Palestine, on the Palestinian resistance, and so on. So this unpleasant 2 or 3 hours conversation ended when a senior officer came into the room and said, "You are denied entry into Brazil." And I think I asked, "What about my family?" They said everybody is denied entry into Brazil, even though my family are Malaysians, so I thought the different laws would apply to them. But when I asked for clarifications, why am I being denied entry into Brazil, there was no clarification. They said this is orders. So they escorted us to a different venue in the airport. I felt, or I noticed, that there were many refugees coming into that area, probably to seek asylum. I even had a brief conversation with some of them. They told me they are coming for asylum. So I didn't know about such laws. I wasn't interested in such move. Although the opportunity was there, I never asked for asylum throughout the 48 hours that we stayed in the airport, because it was a social visit. We had a return ticket 2 weeks later. We were planning only to visit my brother, meet my family members, and go back to Malaysia. I have work and things to attend to. It's unfortunate that they insisted not letting us into the country. When I contacted my brother and friends and activists in Brazil, they arranged for a lawyer to come and pursue the matter. And what happened after that is all over media. For the next 48 hours, we challenged the police order at the court. But unfortunately, I think our defense lawyer did not have enough time and chance to defend me in the court. This is why we plan to appeal the court decision. and I'm sending the lawyer whatever necessary documents to challenge these claims. The the police was not acting because I violated any Brazilian laws. I have utmost respect for Brazil, the Brazilian people, and the Brazilian law. And I know very well that the Brazilian law does not criminalize any Palestinian resistance group. And I know very well that the Brazilian position of Palestine is very clear. Brazil is against the genocide in Gaza, is in full support of a Palestinian statehood and Palestinian freedom. So the questions were very weird, and the final decision to ban me from entry was also very weird. However, I will still pursue the matter legally, and I have utmost respect for the rule of law in Brazil and the due process. I hope I will be successful in overturning this unfair decision, and hopefully I'll be able to visit the country again. But this time around, if I get a chance to visit Brazil, I will not only visit my brother and his family, but the many friends who expressed solidarity, who wrote letters, probably visit universities and build some good academic relations with academic institutions in Brazil. So there is always a wisdom for everything that happens in our life. And although it was disappointing after a very long trip not to be able to meet my brother, even for 5 minutes, I even requested that from the police several times, and my brother wasn't allowed into the lockup area where we were held inside the airport. Although this was disappointing, but I feel that there will be better opportunities in the future, and this is very small compared to what's happening to our people in Gaza and in Palestine at the moment. As we were being detained in the airport and being subject to some, unpleasant experience, there were tens of Palestinian children being bombed, maimed, and persecuted in Gaza. So I'm still thankful for whatever has happened. It was an experience. It opened my eyes to the power of the infamous Zionist lobby that it is active even in Brazil, and it probably now opened the eyes of the Brazilian government and the Brazilian people to the dark forces which try to influence the country's progress and policies. I don't think the U.S., Israel, or any foreign power should have authority or power to decide for a big, great nation like Brazil who comes in and who goes out.
You are more than right. I couldn't agree more. And about your family, your wife that is pregnant, your children, and your mother-in-law, how they were treated by the federal police of Brazil? Were they also interrogated?
They were with me during the interrogation, so they were very shocked actually at what's happening. This was the first time they experienced such thing, and it was a very unexpected turn of events. They, of course, suffered from a very long journey. The Brazilian people in general are very friendly and polite. I have to acknowledge that. And it was very clear that the police officers who were handling our case, or at least some of them, were unaware of the reasons for our travel ban. Because the questions were, some of the officers who were asking questions, I think, didn't have a good idea about what's happening in the Middle East. So it was orders from up. And before leaving Brazil, one of the police officers told us this has come from up. This decision has come from high up. So yeah, I would say that it was not a very pleasant experience, but I hope we don't face similar experience again.
Thank you for your answer. And apart from what happened here in Brazil, you said that you and the family never passed by a situation like that of persecution in the airport, to be interrogated by the police forces. But I wanted to ask it to you if you ever suffered something similar from the Zionist lobby, some kind of persecution.
You see, the Zionist lobby internationally is harassing Palestinians in general and harassing any Palestinian activists. So it is not unknown to be harassed, for instance, online through propaganda, through social media attacks and posts, through protests and reports to the different governments where we travel and go. I have heard several stories about the Zionist lobby and its allies complaining about, for instance, my participation in some international events and conferences, and the same applies to many Palestinian activists as well. But this was the first time I see it before my eyes in full details. I've always heard about what happened, but now I saw what happens and how much this Zionist lobby is trying to, exercise power. So yeah, the life of Palestinians isn't a very easy life. Travel is not always easy for the Palestinians because there are very few countries that welcome Palestinians without visa or with visa on arrival. Brazil, for instance, requires a visa from the Palestinian visitors, and the requirements for a visa are very, very detailed. I obtained that, however, and I still was denied entry, even though I had a proper document and visa. But yeah, traveling for the Palestinians is always hard, and the Palestinians are subject to all sorts of arbitrary and sometimes discriminatory policies. The same applies to many of my family members, many of my friends, many of my colleagues. So it wasn't something very, very new, but it was something provocative this time and unexpected.
So the situation you experienced at Guarulhos Airport demonstrates the influence of the Zionist lobby here in Brazil. First of all, the persecution you and the family have been subjected to, and the behest of the FBI and even the Mossad, which could put your life and your family in risk, is very unpleasant, as you said, and revolting too. Secondly, because it reveals the extent to which the United States and the state of Israel are able to intervene in the Brazilian politics. Both cases, the case of you and your family being persecuted by the federal forces of Brazil just for being Palestinians, and the second case of the United States and the Israeli government intervene in the Brazilian politics are illegal. Firstly, because if you had any kind of links or connections with the Palestinian Resistance organization or something like that, in Brazil, at least legally, we do not criminalize any of them. We do not criminalize the Palestinian resistance, as you said. And secondly, because it directly attacks our country, national sovereignty, by having direct interference from foreign institutions as FBI, as American government, and even the Israeli government. And my question to you now is, why do you think this happened to you, especially unfortunately in the Brazilian country?
Okay, let me highlight a few points here. Number one, I am well aware, as any Palestinian activist, that the Israeli intelligence agencies like the Mossad and their allies are very active in harassing the Palestinians in general. They spy on Palestinians, they disturb Palestinians, and to some extent, Israel being a rogue state, they sometimes even kill Palestinian activists worldwide. A few years ago, 6 years ago, they assassinated a Palestinian professor here in Kuala Lumpur. They sent Mossad agents to, kill and run. 2 years ago, probably, or a few years ago, they kidnapped some Palestinians here from Kuala Lumpur. So this is not something unexpected. The Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agencies operate in a very, barbaric way. You just look at what's happening in Gaza, the way they bomb mosques, hospitals, churches, snipers shooting congregation inside a church, kidnapping, all sorts of barbaric activities. So this is, of course, not something unknown for Israel. They have been doing that because they don't see the Palestinians as humans. They don't see actually any other nation as human. They think that they are the chosen race and that they are better than anybody else, and everyone else is just numbers. So going to Brazil, I thought that such agencies won't have this much influence because Brazil is a BRICS nation. It's a rising global power. It's the major power in Latin America. It's under the leadership of a global statesman, President Lula da Silva, who is well respected internationally, especially in the international South. I did not imagine that the Mossad and the Israeli lobby has such influence. Now, arriving at the country, I noticed that not only the Mossad and the Israeli lobby has influence, but of course, the US itself has direct influence. If the embassy has the power to stop somebody from entering a major power like Brazil, is very disappointing and very unfortunate. I see sometimes drama, American drama, or even Latin drama on Netflix and online, and sometimes you see how influential the CIA and other American agencies can be in Latin American countries. But honestly, I did not imagine that was the case in Brazil itself. Brazil is not just another country. Brazil is a major BRICS nation. It has the potential to be one of the major global leaders. And under the current leadership, it has a real potential to, champion the causes of the South. So this happening to me, this is a small issue, of course, but it shows a lot that there are challenges ahead for Brazil, and I really hope.
Sorry, we lost connection. Could you?
So I'm saying I hope that the Brazilian nation will overcome all of these challenges and will continue to lead Brazil to take its right place in the leadership of the global South and the world. Our expectation from Brazil as Palestinians is it will lead through our struggle, just like South Africa. Go sue Israel in the ICJ, bring Israeli leaders to the ICC, pressure other global powers like the US to end the genocide in Gaza. This is our expectation from Brazil. But when it was stopped in the airport, I saw all of this, before my eyes, and I was wondering if Israel has so much power to stop an activist, an academic activist entering Brazil. How can Brazil bring Israel to the ICJ?
It's a very powerful statement that you make and invite us to think about the influence of the Zionist lobby, the Israeli government here in Brazil. But Professor Muslim, when here in A Nova Democracia we heard about the Al-Aqsa flood operation on October 7th, we understood that our commitment as a popular and democratic press was to start the Palestine Watch, which we continue to maintain to this date in order to monitor the developing situation in Gaza, in West Bank, and even in all the Middle East. We started it because we understood that we have to denounce the Zionist atrocities in Gaza, but also to exalt the greatness of the Palestinian national resistance. For you, in your perspective, what does the Al-Aqsa flood means to you, to your people, and to the entire world?
You see, Gaza has been besieged by Israel for almost 17 years. Israel has exercised all sorts of restrictive policies in Gaza. They control the water, they control the petrol that comes in, the electric supply, they control who enters Gaza, who leaves Gaza, the medicine coming in. At some point of time, they even control the children food, the milk, the school, stationery, and so on. So in October 2023, what happened was the Palestinians in this big open air prison breaking the walls of the prison. It was a prison break. For so many years, they were subject to all sorts of torture. Suddenly, the Palestinian Resistance was able to bring down these walls. And thousands of people, apart from the resistance fighters who stormed into Israeli military points, thousands of Palestinian civilians from all walks of life started walking into, back to their hometowns, to the Israeli territories around Gaza. Because you know what? 70% of the people of Gaza are refugees from inside what is called now Israel. The people of Gaza are refugees. They tried very hard, peacefully, to go back to their homeland. From 2018 until 2020, hundreds of times Palestinians protested at the borders peacefully in what was called the Great Return March. How did Israel respond to that? Israeli snipers were shooting Palestinian people, young activists and protesters on daily basis. They killed hundreds of them, including paramedics like Razan Najjar, including journalists, including elderly, and they maimed thousands of them. Thousands of Palestinians have lost arms and legs and eyes. This is in the peaceful protests from 2018 to 2020. So in 2023, the Palestinian resistance tried another way. If peaceful protest is ignored by the world, is ignored by Israel, then they thought that they have to try to, break these walls and to bring the global attention to what's happening in Gaza. And they apparently succeeded in bringing global attention to what's happening in Gaza, not not because the world cares much about what's happening to the Palestinians, but because unfortunately many in the Western world in particular care about what's happening to the Israelis. So suddenly we saw global leaders, Western, presidents and foreign secretaries coming to Israel for pilgrimage. We saw the American president, the American Secretary of State, the defense minister, the French president, the British prime minister, everybody coming to Israel to show solidarity with the Israelis. Because the Palestinians were able for one day in their life to break the walls of this big prison. But since then, until today, if you take the rough estimates of human rights groups, more than 41,000 Palestinian civilians were killed in Gaza, mostly women and children. More than 16,000 Palestinian children were killed. Every day, 10 Palestinian children lose a leg. Not arms. There are other statistics for arms or other body parts. But every day, 10 Palestinian children lose one or two legs since October the 7th. A genocide is taking place, and the world doesn't bother much about it. So we noticed in Palestine that the only way the world will bother about what's happening to the Palestinians is when Palestinian resistance actually breaks these walls and storms into Israel. That's just an analysis, of how things work, unfortunately.
We believe that the Palestinian people have the right to fight for their self-determination and liberate their land from the Zionist domination and colonization. Could you, as a scholar of your people's cause, explain to us why the Palestinian national resistance stands firm while we see the Zionist state of Israel collapsing in crisis?
You see, one important factor that we have to take into account is that the Palestinians have no other choice. The Palestinians are at an existential state of their history. The Palestinians could become Red Indians. What happened to the Red Indians in North America, what happened to the Aborigines in Australia could happen to the Palestinians. They have been persecuting us for 76 years, for 77 years by now. They have killed tens of thousands. They have evicted and deported hundreds of thousands. They have exercised all sorts of apartheid policies on the Palestinians. And the purpose is very clear. Leave. The Israeli ministers are telling us, leave. Just leave Gaza. Go into Egypt, go into whatever country, become refugees, and that's it. The Palestinians have no other choice but to stay and fight back. So it's the power of having no choice, actually. While on the other side, Israel has choice. It has many choices. One of the most important choices is to give the Palestinians their basic rights. End occupation, end colonization, welcome Palestinian refugees back home, end the fascist Zionist ideology, this defunct ideology from the 19th century. This is a very, very old ideology of more than 150 years that is worse than Nazism and fascism, but it's still in practice. And the Israeli political elite is becoming more extremist in their Zionism. So Israel has choice. Let the Palestinians build their state. Let the Palestinian refugees come back to Palestine. Let them live in peace from the river to the sea. Israel has a lot of choice, but instead of giving us any of our rights, what they choose is more violence, more war, more bombings, more aggression, more attacks on their neighbors. Israel doesn't only attack the Palestinians. They started, carpet bombing Gaza, but at the same time, they killed almost 1,000 Palestinians in the West Bank. And at the same time, they are currently bombing Lebanon. And they have been bombing Syria for the last 30 years or so. And they have tried to bomb Iran. And they have been bombing in everywhere. And in countries where they don't bomb, they send the Mossad agents to kill activists and individuals, be it Palestinian, Iranian, before this Egyptian, Syrian. Israel is a rogue state. It's a disease. It has to be handled. It has to be addressed. This apartheid should come to an end. This war criminal, bloodthirsty, children-killing regime should be accountable. It should be brought to justice. The ICJ is only a good start. ICC is a good also start. But the international community should come together, band together, and stop this regime from committing these crimes. If the world doesn't stop Israel, the Palestinians might become Red Indians. But I assure you, the Palestinians are fighting back. They're not going to go down in history, just like that, being persecuted and wiped out. We don't want to be wiped out. We have had 10,000 years of history. We will, inshallah, continue to build another 10,000 years of history, whether the Israeli Zionist regime likes it or not.
I do believe that the Palestinian people, your cause, are going to defeat the Israeli state, the Zionism ideology, and your people will your people is going back to your land.
Thank you.
And I still regard my last question. We see that the state of Israel is very politically isolated, and demoralized, while we see the Palestinian resistance gaining surprising international support and being able to maintain itself in these 8 months of war with great courage and bravery. In your perspective, Professor Muslim, what explains this phenomenon?
I believe the Israeli leadership is drunk with power. This is arrogance at its maximum. When you are too powerful and there are no checks and balances, and you are already fed with Zionist, fascist ideology, you start to commit terrible mistakes. This happened with the United States. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States became the sole global hegemon from the early 1990s all the way until recent years. They became so powerful, and they started to ignore multilateralism, ignore the United Nations, ignore the whole world, and they went into knocking down Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you remember? In 2001 and then 2003? They did that because they were able to do that, not because that was the right thing to do. Destroying Iraq, sending Iraq back many years, opening the Pandora box of civil wars, extremism, and so on. The same mistakes are being committed by the Israelis. And in fact, some American leaders advised Israeli leaders in October 2023. They told them, don't go into Gaza, don't repeat our mistakes. But the Israelis are so powerful, so arrogant, that they want to commit more war crimes. They want to bomb more countries. Because, if they can stop an activist, a peaceful academic activist from entering a country 7,000 kilometers away, do you think they care when they bomb people in Gaza? They don't care. They think they are so powerful. However, this is where you start making big mistakes. Israel is committing major strategic mistakes. And I'm not talking as a Palestinian now, I'm talking as an academic. Israel as a regime is committing major strategic mistakes. They have achieved some small tactical gains in the streets of Rafah or Jabalia or Khan Yunus. But overall, look at the big picture. They are committing blunders. They are putting themselves in a lot of trouble with the whole world. They are now being questioned. The legitimacy of the existence of Israel is being questioned by everybody, including American citizens themselves, including Western powers. 4 European countries after October 2023 recognized the Palestinian state. Countries like South Africa took it all the way to the ICJ to criminalize Israel as a country that commits genocide. Arrogance kills. Israel is very arrogant. The Israeli leaders are committing big mistakes because of this arrogance, and I'm very sure that is going to be the end of their imperialist dominance.
Palestinian National Resistance, we salute and support your resistance, and we will support your cause until the Palestinian people wins. Terrorism is what the Zionist state of Israel does against the Palestinian people, and not the struggle of the Palestinian people, and which is a just and more than right cause to fight for. And I would like to ask you if you could answer to us the perspectives you have as a geopolitical analyst. We see the military resistance of the Palestinian cause gain another quality. We saw the Shujaiya battle the last year. Was a huge operation in the north of Gaza, in Jabalia too, and even in Rafah. Recently, we saw the national resistance using another kind of missile that we do not see they using frequently. the resistance being able to gain more force, more military skills during this battle, during these 8 months of war. How do you see that?
I believe that the Palestinian resistance is serious about liberating Palestine. The experience that the Palestinian Authority had in the 1990s and early 2000s was a very bitter experience. Israel was never interested in a two-state solution. Israel was never interested in letting the Palestinians have their own independent state. They maneuvered, they manipulated the Palestinian leadership, and Israel eventually never delivered what it promised in the Oslo Agreement in 1993. The Palestinian people in general and the Palestinian resistance groups were watching this, and they realized that in order to liberate Palestine, you have to have your own strength, your own power base, your own capabilities to defend your people and to establish your own independent state. And their resistance campaign started in the 90s and throughout the 2000s. And eventually they were able to build a resistant, defiant regime in Gaza, which was able to build its own capabilities. In Gaza, they do not rely on weapons coming from across the world, unlike Israel, which is being showered with military supplies and deals from the US, Britain, and other countries. Gaza relies on its own local capabilities. The people dig tunnels, they build their own rockets, they make their own sniper guns. They really make use of their own people's intelligence and whatever basic simple capabilities they have, because they are serious about liberation. And this is why throughout the last 20 years they were able to build enough strength to put up a real strong fight to the Israeli military. The Israeli military started to realize that the longer they stay in Gaza, the worst things will be for them. Why is that so? Because what the resistance is doing in Gaza is that they are dismantling the myth of the invincible army. Israel, for 50 years, has promoted the idea that it is an exceptional military power. It has so much, capabilities. It has so much technology. It has so much strength that its enemies cannot even attack it. Since 1973, the Arab-Israeli War of 1973, no foreign power dared to attack Israel. Up until 2021 and 2023, when the Palestinian resistance took initiative to attack the Israeli military again, and to prove that the Israeli military is just like any other military. However, it has a superior propaganda machine. It has the image of invincibility, which was proven wrong. And it has a strong Western backing, especially by the United States, which sponsors the Israeli military every year and currently sponsors them with billions of dollars that could be put to better use in the United States itself. So coming back to the situation in Gaza, the longer the war is, the worse things will be for the Israeli military, because what's happening is that the image was dismantled since October the 7th of Israel as a superior power. And now the Israeli military, the Israeli fighters are so scared to come back to Gaza. Some Israeli military fighters suicide when they are told that you're going to be sent to Gaza. The experience is horrible because the people in Gaza are fighting for survival. The Israeli military in Gaza is not fighting for survival. The Israeli military in Gaza is fighting for superiority, for arrogance, for brutality, for Netanyahu to stay in power. And if they go into Lebanon, it will be much worse. And they know very well that Netanyahu will do anything to stay in power, to the extent that he's going to destroy his own regime. The only problem for us in Palestine is that our people are suffering as civilians, because Israel does not respect the laws of war. It bombs hospitals, it bombs mosques. That's how I see it as a geopolitical analyst.
And the situation in West Bank is very optimistic on the side of the resistance of the Palestinian people. In the last years, we saw that very young male and even female young people joined the Jenin Brigades, the Lions Oh my gosh. Yes.
Lion's Den.
Lion's Dance, yes. And other, the Tukaren brigades and Nablus brigades, but particularly in Jenin, the city of Jenin, we see very strong resistance being carried out by the young Palestinian. And how do you explain this phenomenon that is going on right now in West Bank, that grow only can grow in the midst of the Palestinian people's cause for its liberation?
You know, it all goes down to the people, to the individuals, to the man on the ground. My grandma used to tell me, my late grandma, may her soul rest in peace, used to tell me, if this struggle against Israel is by sword, we would have won long ago. But it's not by sword. Israel has so much sophisticated technology, so much economic power because of the Western help, because of the United States hegemonic intervention. And the Palestinians basically have nothing. They build their own defense capabilities from whatever, from anything. Sometimes Israel bombs them, they take out these bombs, they rebuild it, and they send it back to Israel. The Palestinian people are willing to fight. If it is man to man, Palestinians will win. The problem is that we are denied the basic necessities to resist and to defend ourselves. The Palestinian people in Gaza are besieged, not only by Israel, but also, unfortunately, by the Egyptian government and its restrictions on the people of Gaza. The Palestinian people are besieged in the West Bank as well, not only by Israel, but also by our neighboring governments. The Palestinian people and the Palestinian resistance is being denied the basic needs they need to survive and win this war. Israel receives tens of billions of dollars of military aid from the United States and other powers, even as we speak. Meanwhile, how many people, how many governments send weapons to Gaza to fight back? People across the world are reluctant to even send food to Gaza to survive. The people in North Gaza don't have food to survive.
Professor Muslim, no problem. I would like to. No problem. I would like to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for making this, doing this interview for us. And I like to ask you if you could to send a message to Brazilian people, even to the people who is supporting Palestinian people around the world. And I am very, very, very I'm very pleased and optimistic about the Palestinian cause, about the Palestinian resistance. We are going to stand with you, your people, your cause, with the Palestinian, until the Zionist state of Israel is defeated. And
thank you so much, Anna.
Your struggle means a lot for us.
Thank you. I really appreciate these words. Thank you very much, Anna, and thanks to Democracy Now! For this opportunity. I have a very brief message. Number one, I want to assure all of the friends watching this that the Palestinian struggle is a struggle for justice, for peace, for democracy, for human rights, for innocent children to live in dignity. We're not demanding to become a superpower. We're not demanding to become so rich. We're not demanding to become so powerful and to control other parts of the world. We are only demanding basic human rights to live in peace and dignity. And this cuts across all backgrounds. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, everybody can join this struggle. White, black, brown, Asian, African, Latin American, everybody can join this struggle. The Palestinian people themselves are Muslim, Christian, and Jew. We have a diverse society. We have coexisted for thousands of years in Palestine, and the Palestinian nation has always welcomed everyone. We have in our cities in Jerusalem, for instance, we have a Moroccan quarter. We have in Gaza, we have a Brazil neighborhood.
Yes.
We have we have Brazil neighborhood. The name is Brazil neighborhood. We are a nation that welcomes anyone because it's a holy land. There is Al-Aqsa Mosque, there is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of Nativity, and all the monotheistic religions have holy places in Palestine. So we have always been welcoming, and it's not about Palestinian Muslims wanting to take over, because sometimes some quarters try to distort the reality. It's not a fight for religion. It's not a fight for racial superiority. It's a fight for human rights, equality, freedom. The Palestinians want to live in peace. We did not come to Palestine overnight, knock down the previous people and take over. This, in fact, happened to us. Israeli militias, Israeli forces came from across the world, migrated to Palestine, settled in Palestine with the help of the British, destroyed our homes and cities in 1947, 1948. 500 Palestinian towns and cities were destroyed by these Zionist Jewish militias. They took over Palestine, they established their state, they continued to commit horror against the Palestinians. So this has to come to an end. We want peace, we want justice as well. We want dignity as well. So I welcome everybody to join this struggle for freedom. Be it white, black, brown, Asian, African, Latin American, or whatever. This is not about the Palestinians now. It's about all of you. It's a fight for freedom. My message is very briefly, number one, to the friends of Palestine in Brazil, don't let any development let you down. Whatever happens for a wisdom and for a reason. I'm sure that with the hard work that you do, Palestine will be free soon. Continue doing the good work you do. Continue to talk about Palestine. Continue to organize activities for the Palestinian freedom. Continue to invite Palestinian academics, activists, politicians. Continue to engage the Palestinians. Continue to organize activities, rallies, and to pressure your government to do good for Palestine. This is one. Number two, my message to the government of Brazil, to His Excellency President Lula and his government. I have utmost respect for President Lula and his struggle, his personal struggle throughout his life, and the efforts he put to bring the Brazilian nation to progress. And I hope that he himself, in his capacity, will do justice to my case and help in reversing this unfair decision that took place to ban me from entering Brazil. And I hope His Excellency will continue to play a major role in advancing the Palestinian struggle internationally in all international platforms. I have seen his speeches on Israel committing genocide in Gaza, and his position on Palestine is very clear. I appreciate that, and I hope he will continue in that path. Finally, my message to the pro-Israel lobby in Brazil. I know some have vested interests. Some people are probably very close to Israel. In fact, unfortunately, some Brazilian dual citizens have served in the Israeli army. They probably committed massacres in Gaza. These people, I don't have anything to say to them, but the general pro-Israel community in Brazil, especially those who support Israel because of narrow religious interpretations of the Holy Scriptures, especially the biblical scriptures. Trust me, if Jesus comes to life, if Jesus comes to Palestine now, he will never be on the side of Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich. If Jesus comes to Gaza now, he will never endorse and approve the killing of 16,000 Palestinian children. What you think of Israel is very wrong. You really have to rethink your views about this regime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Muslim.